we're at the point in the season where things are starting to feel fun, where there are consequences every week because every game could knock somebody out of the playoff. Nebraska is in a really interesting situation. There is still hope that they could make it, but they can only afford one loss if they want to get there. This week, a challenging Maryland team will present themselves, and it could be a weather game. It could be a game where Nebraska has to dig deep and come from behind to win. You never know. Nebraska's been playing a little bit up and down, and they typically play to the level of their opponent. So that's what makes this one so exciting for me. And one of the reasons I had to bring our friend Sam on is because Sam actually picked Nebraska to lose last week to Michigan State. I had to get his logic there, and I wanted to know his new thoughts on what's happening around the Big Ten. So with all that said, I'm going to bring my buddy Sam in because Sam, you're a great guest on the show. People love it when you join, and obviously you have a bunch of insight and knowledge about what's going on in the conference. So welcome. Happy to see you. It's been a couple weeks. Haven't seen you or talked to you since the Michigan loss.
Yeah, it's always good to be back on here. I love the fan support and talking football with you. It's always great to reciprocate my ideas off of your head. I love it.
I like that you and I have different ways of thinking about football, right? I think of it from less of an X and O standpoint, and I think of it more in terms of the drama and the nuances, the behind the scenes, what's going on with players and coaches, and the state of the country, right? And trying to understand what's going on in these national game scenarios, whereas you go deep dive into each and every game. So I like that we both can, bounce off each other. But I want to go back to last week because I didn't get to talk to you about it. What was your thought watching the Michigan State game? And what's your new thought about what Nebraska is now that they were able to overcome what felt like could be another devastating loss?
Well, the reason I picked Michigan State was two parts. It was the fact that Nebraska's pass rush up to that point was proven to be just as ineffective about as Michigan State's. They had similarly low levels of QB pressures and sacks. And the idea that Nebraska, I think the Michigan loss and Raiola taking that many sacks said more about Nebraska than it did Michigan, at least up to that point. So I thought that Michigan State would be able to get pressure on Raiola. They were able to. I didn't expect Nebraska to really break out in that way in pass rush. They had a really good day getting to the quarterback. And what taught me a lot was that Nebraska's defense did a really good job against the run. And I think that game showed me that Nebraska's run defense actually isn't all that bad. They have just faced a Cincinnati rushing offense and a Michigan rushing offense that are top 10 in America in yards per carry and that have really good running back rooms, great offensive lines, mobile QBs that are hard to deal with.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I picked Michigan State because I thought they'd be better in the trenches, and I love their coaching staff, and I think Childs is a great QB, and some of those things came through. But Nebraska did something that they haven't done before in the sense of usually they lose this type of game the way the momentum was going, but they pick themselves back up.
Right.
And something they did too, which, I mean, you could say they haven't done before, but that's because they haven't had this good of a team before. They just showed they were the better team and really overpowered Michigan State after getting down.
As the game went on, it's like they started to lean onto him. And you know what? The number one takeaway I had after it was Nebraska's not done building in terms of this season. Like we saw what they could be in the very beginning, and we saw there was a little bit of a pass rush from like a Dasan McCullough. Didn't know much about Williams Nwaneri. Riley Van Poppel and Elijah Judy were big question marks, and it seems like every single week they start to make bigger plays, right? So you're seeing that the team, now that they're going through more together, is getting more experienced, and they're going to, by the end of the season, hopefully be a legitimate force that can win games against big teams like a Penn State, for example, or a USC when they come in a few weeks. So people get excited early on and they get stressed out and they're like, oh, this is who we are, which I agree to some degree, it is who you are. But there's always room for growth along the season. We saw that with Dylan Raiola last year. He made a huge jump from the beginning when they really struggled, or I guess the middle part to the end when he started to look really good. And yeah, I think you just got to calm down and wait to see how it all plays out. Jim, thank you for the 777. He says, Boomer Sooner, my favorite team, except when playing the Huskers. Have fun and not too many funnel cakes. Jim, I'll try not to go the funnel cake route. I'm sticking to a diet a little bit. I want to make sure my jawline stays secure, but I will be rooting for Oklahoma with you 100%. I appreciate the support. Blake says, I love when Sam is on. Blake, I agree with you. Sam just offers this like calm, cool, and collected tone. He knows what he's talking about, so it's nice to see him. And Jim, back with another one. He says, love Sam and forgive him for last week's faux pas. We do forgive Sam. The thing about Sam is he won't make the same mistake twice, right? He will ride or die for Nebraska in almost every scenario. We're going to see what he has to say about today. I have not watched any of his video predictions leading up to this, so we'll get into it. But Jim, thank you for the 777. I appreciate you. So Sam, let's talk about Maryland. You know, they're coming in. I don't know where you compare them in terms of Big Ten, like what other schools that Nebraska's played. I mean, they're not as good as Cincinnati. They're on a similar level to Michigan State, but they have a different profile, obviously. They're a team that typically has really good skill players. This year they found guys in the portal, and they got a new true freshman or I guess he's a redshirt freshman, right? Whatever he is.
Oh, the true freshman, actually.
Oh, he is? Okay. So he's a true freshman quarterback. They find athletes, but they typically aren't dominating on the line. So Nebraska, you would hope, has that edge. What's your number one kind of weakness that we would point out about Maryland where Nebraska can probably take advantage?
Oh, this one's really, really fun. So I love to use a website now that I just discovered this year. Shout out another channel, Darren Talks Ball, for introducing it to me. It's called Game on Paper. You get a lot of these different advanced analytics, but some of them are just simple analytics that they provide to give context.
Okay.
Maryland is all the way at 132nd in America in yards per carry. Like, they can't run the football. And that's Nebraska's only weakness on defense. So I would expect Nebraska to have a pretty good day defensively, given their secondary's number one in yards allowed per pass attempt, and Maryland can't run the football to save their life. That's their weakness.
What happened? Maryland, it feels like, had a good run game in the past, at least serviceable. And now I guess did they focus too much on the pass game, or they just don't have any running backs?
They lost Roman Hemby to Indiana, and Hemby looks really good at Indiana. And they had a lot of shuffling on the offensive line because last year's unit was atrocious. So they brought in some transfers. Some other players transferred out. The offense is honestly outside of Malik Washington and maybe some of their receivers like Farouk or Octavian Smith. It's kind of a mess, if I got to be honest. They, weirdly enough, they hit on defense. So they have like two true freshman defensive ends who've hit. Their defensive tackle room somehow upgraded despite losing a lot of production there, at least it seems. They're a defense first team. It's kind of really weird, if I got to be honest.
I mean, when you're a team like Maryland and you're playing in the Big Ten and you're going to get athletes, you're going to be able to go out and get hopefully a secondary, hopefully some linebackers. You know, Maryland's had good linebackers in the past. When you think back to Nebraska playing them in 2019, I think the best player on their team was a linebacker. So I'm not surprised by it. But yeah, you would think that they're athlete forward. And like you said, Jalil Farouk and Octavian Smith, those are two of the best players. I've been paying attention to Maryland a little bit because I've been betting on them, and they've been covering for me, which has been nice. But yeah, I just don't think that they have the talent to match up with Nebraska, at least not the depth. Like, we talk about their top tier, but their top tier can't go to their second level, right? Nebraska's backups could hang with some of the guys in Maryland's front line. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I think that is a wonderful way to look at it. I think if you are Nebraska, you just have to make sure that you don't turn over the football and you keep Maryland's defense from producing tackle for loss after tackle for loss. I mean, they've played a lot of bad competition, but what they did to Washington in that, first 35, 40, 45 minutes of the game was impressive. And analytically, their defense is really good. I do think they're a Michigan State type team that probably doesn't match up as well as MSU did because they just don't have any rushing offense.
Yep.
And that's the non-negotiable if you're going to play Nebraska and beat them, is you have to run the ball.
And run the ball with your quarterback. If you can run with a quarterback, you can exploit some of Nebraska's issues.
Yes, exactly.
But they're not doing that.
No. They're
Yeah,
not.
it gives me a little bit of confidence. I already had confidence, but a little bit more. Colby says, question for Sam. There was one point where you thought Michigan State had the best staff in the Big Ten. What's your view on them at this point in time?
I I can't really say that anymore after A, what Indiana's done, and B, just looking at how the team has made some improvements, but hasn't quite made the jump in some areas where I would like them to. One caveat to that, though, is I know it's year two, and I know that most people are used to in the transfer portal era, you get 2 or 3 years, not 4 or 5. I understand that. But Mel Tucker left them with a MAC caliber roster, and Michigan State, for whatever reason, is one of these few Big Ten East teams that actually hasn't benefited from the East being broken up like Michigan has. This is one of Michigan's easiest schedules I can remember in Big Ten play. Ohio State, I think, has benefited a tad bit, not as much as Michigan this year, but this year they benefited, last year not so much. Penn State's benefited because they don't have any permanent rivalries, so
Yep.
they don't have to play Michigan and Ohio State every year. They somehow blundered that this year, but that's a different topic. Um, yeah, I think that as long as they get to a bowl game, the season's a success, I think, for that staff. That's kind of how bad the roster situation was when Smith took over.
And that's the issue. It's not that you're worried about their coaching staff. The coaching staff's had success and they're doing, a decent job right now. It's just they need more time to build the roster. So moving on from Michigan State, I want to talk about Michigan. You're a Michigan fan. There's a really important game in the Big Ten this week between USC and Michigan. There are a lot of important games in the Big Ten this week. I mean, if you look at the situation at hand, just talk about teams who could finish the season with one loss or two loss in the Big Ten. And then you look at who they have to play this week and you look at what the, next 3 weeks holds. It could be a very tricky tiebreaker scenario where a Nebraska somehow, or a Nebraska and Indiana, a Michigan, even a USC, depending on what happens this week with Michigan, they could all try to find their way in to the Big Ten championship game. Obviously, we don't expect all of them to win out, but hypothetically, right? The Big Ten just has so many teams at the top right now. We expect some to lose, but let's talk about Michigan and USC. And what's your take on that game? Michigan obviously comes to Nebraska. They do what they did. They looked really good in their efforts. And now they go to USC, a revenge game for SC, a night game for SC, a team who, they're really explosive on offense at their best. They're a little bit more inconsistent. I'm not sure you can even say they have the coaching advantage with Lincoln Riley, although you would have said that in the past. And yeah, this game means a lot in the Big Ten. It means a lot for Nebraska because if Nebraska gets to host a USC who's ranked or has a better record, it's going to mean more for them in the polls as we get into the college football playoff selection if Nebraska can win this game and then win the next couple here. So what's your thought on that game? Where do you think it goes?
I picked USC. I'm just going to come out of the gate with this one because otherwise I could talk myself either way. I think that Michigan is the better team here, and I think that if this game were played same exact circumstances, but in November, I'd probably pick Michigan too. USC, when they're healthy, is one of, I think, the 15 or 10 best teams in America. The problem is they don't have depth. One injury to your starter and your backup is almost G5 level. Their depth is horrible.
Yeah.
Michigan has way better depth, but they're traveling multiple time zones over. We saw how that affected Ohio State last year, how that affected Oregon at times last year, how that affected Penn State this year. And you're going to see it more. And this will be a theme in the new Big Ten, is home field advantage is going to be bigger now than ever because of that time zone difference between these mega conferences. That's going to be a huge thing.
Can I pause you right there?
getting-
Let me pause you right there. Let's stick
Yep.
to the time zone conversation. Good teams are not affected by time zone. I mean, realistically, Ohio State went to Washington, no effect. Oregon goes to Penn State, seemingly didn't affect them. They won the game, right? If you're Michigan and you're one of the top three teams in the Big Ten, which right now I'm standing until this USC game, we'll see what happens in that. Right now, I believe they're, maybe 4 behind Indiana, but Michigan's one of the best teams. So you still think the time zone could affect them? I am not looking at that as a factor.
Here's how I look at it. Ohio State, Washington, there was such a disparity
Talent,
in the
yeah,
caliber of
talent
team.
disparity.
Yeah, where the only way Ohio State was going to lose is if they were not up for that game. That's what happened with Penn State UCLA. If that game were to rematch, Penn State would still be favored by 3 touchdowns, but they were demoralized. Oregon kind of took their soul out of their body, and UCLA had nothing to lose.
Yep.
The reason I think it's a factor here is I believe Michigan and USC are that close together. So it's one thing that can maybe change one play, and that one play changes everything.
Fair.
I believe that Michigan's weaknesses on third down defensively, where Martindale loves to blitz, he loves to get close on the line of scrimmage with his linebackers and defensive linemen, but play a little bit off with his corners. I think that Riley and those receivers, especially if Jacoby Lane is healthy, are going to take advantage of that. My opinion is that Michigan should win, but because of USC having the bye and a lot of external factors that aren't within the players' control, so what their coaches do, what the travel does to you, the bye that USC should take advantage of, I'm going to go with USC here, but it's
Yeah.
really a 50-50 game, and that's what's going to be so fun about it.
As a Nebraska fan, I want USC to win. USC's more likely to lose some other games down the road. I think they play, like in Oregon, they play Notre Dame. That could kick them out. Whereas in Michigan, if they beat USC, they're in pretty good standing because I think Michigan could beat Ohio State this year. So I'm just looking for a path, right? I'm still in fantasy land, believing there's a chance for Nebraska to make the playoff until there isn't. So as long as they keep winning the games they're supposed to win, and there's 3 of them lined up back to back to back for them to do, we got to talk about the possibilities, Just imagine what a Nebraska night game would be like against USC. If USC is ranked or only has 2 losses and Nebraska 7-1 ranked. I mean, it would be freaking electric. I know you haven't been to Lincoln yet, but it would be must-see TV. It would be must-be-at in-person energy. So we'll see. I'm excited for it. Really quick, there's this nonsense in the chat about candy corn. I just want to settle this really quick about candy corn. People don't know this, but candy corn is actually such a terrible candy that people don't ever eat it at Halloween. So every year they throw all of the candy corn away. Then there's a special facility where they hold that candy corn, and then the next year they go and recycle it, essentially repackage it and sell it to people because it's never eaten. So candy corn is constantly recycled. People didn't know about that, but yeah, people thought it was a myth. It's true. Candy corn is terrible. No one eats it, and this cornbread conversation, you guys are ridiculous too. Cornbread's fantastic. I'm not reading anything beyond that, but candy corn's terrible. Cornbread's fantastic. We can settle that. Okay. Indiana, Oregon. Can I get your thoughts on that game really quick? Because I want to bet this game, but at the same time, I'm too scared to. And I'm not gonna be able to watch it. Wait, am I? It's 12:30. No, I won't be able to watch that one. So what's the situation at hand for Indiana? How can they match up and how can they take advantage of Oregon?
This is so tricky because everything from here on out is predicated upon whether or not Indiana does a better job of scaling what they want to do against vastly superior talent rosters. If it's exactly like it was last year, they're getting destroyed.
Yeah.
If it's improved, how they've done a better job of running the ball, how they played the game Iowa wanted them to a few weeks ago and still beat them, and how they've been able to stop the run and play a very effective, productive, very chaotic zone scheme on defense, then you start to get into really fun and interesting stuff. I think that Oregon, they definitely have a size advantage at the lines of scrimmage. I do believe that 7.5 line is priced pretty well. I would say I'm not a betting expert, but I do think Oregon neutral field would be slightly better, but not a lot better. My biggest concern for Oregon is I don't think Penn State's played their A game all season long, but I think in that Oregon game, Penn State didn't really do anything productive until that fourth quarter when they had a huge fourth quarter. Yeah. Were able to get productive passes, were able to get push on the lines of scrimmage, and everything I've seen from Indiana tells me they're better than Penn State in just about every way.
Yeah,
from how they've played. And Surratt, I don't know if he's a first round receiver. I don't think so, but he always finds ways to get open. Mendoza has looked like a potential round one, pick one NFL draft guy this upcoming draft. Same with Dante Moore, though.
Yeah.
Um, I think Oregon's going to win. I want to pick Indiana because I like the idea, but talent advantage,
Okay, the fantasy
yeah,
that we all have is Indiana wins. They jump up to number 3 in the country, right behind Ohio State and Miami. And now college football's, flipped upside down. You're like, what the hell? Nebraska fans would lose their shit. Imagine a world where Indiana wins this week and Nebraska loses this week, right? Nebraska fans would absolutely lose their minds. But I mean, for the chaos of college football, wouldn't that just be poetic? Not trying to manifest that, just saying it would be crazy. This game doesn't really affect Nebraska that much. No matter whether Indiana wins or Oregon wins that game, they both are going to be on the inside track to making the Big Ten championship. But, one will have a little bit more of an edge with a win like that. So we'll see. There are a lot of big games this week, Sam. It's an exciting freaking week. So let's go back to Nebraska, Maryland. Right now, it says it could rain in Maryland. Not sure that really affects much. I don't know if it's going to pour, right? I think Nebraska's going to be able to do what they do, rain or shine, doesn't matter. They say Nebraska's a 66% chance to win. They open as a 5.5 point favorite. In most places, it's up to 7. I feel like we could be looking at another situation where Nebraska goes in, plays quote unquote down to the level of their competition and still finds a way to win by a touchdown, right? Like Nebraska in theory could beat this Maryland team by 2 touchdowns if they play their best, knowing that they don't ever play their best in almost any game. We can expect it's going to be closer than we would hope for, and maybe a backdoor touchdown at the very end to get Nebraska to cover, whatever. What did you think about this line? Did you think this was a closer game when you first saw it? Did you think Nebraska could take it? What was your thought?
initially when I looked at it, I thought it was interesting in that Maryland would play it close, but Nebraska would win. The more I looked into it, I think that anything that you would want to have go your way if you were playing Nebraska, Maryland just doesn't have.
Yeah.
So they don't have a consistent enough passing offense to make that secondary challenge its confidence or
Yeah.
question its confidence. They don't have an X factor offensive line or a single X factor running back to force Nebraska to change up any schemes they have. Something that I thought of is that with Michigan and Cincinnati, but especially Michigan, Nebraska didn't surrender consistent 5, 6, 7 yard carries. They at times stopped them at the line of scrimmage, but where they really got in trouble is when Michigan could let the blocks develop and they could, pull offensive linemen, give them momentum. They'd lock up the Nebraska defenders and the receivers would block downfield and boom, Justice Haynes is gone.
Yep.
That takes a lot of work and a lot of preparation and athleticism and talent to pull that off multiple times in a game against a Nebraska defense that is top 25 in a lot of advanced analytics and metrics. And Cincinnati just keeps getting better every week. I don't think Maryland has what it takes to win this game. I would be shocked.
So, Vegas thinks that Nebraska and Washington are the same. When you look at all the lines and how they price them, they think those are equal talent teams. I disagree with that slightly. I think Nebraska's better. They're further along in their rebuild, and they have a more veteran quarterback, right? Washington's the best team that Maryland's played, and Washington had to travel all the way across the country to play that game. Nebraska, I don't think is going to deal with that, and I think Nebraska's just a better team. This is the moment where Maryland wakes up and says, holy shit, this is what playing real Big Ten football looks like. This is a top 15 defense statistically right now. These guys in secondary are dominant, and we're not going to be able to throw the ball on them. Malik Williams will throw a pick, if not 2. They're going to be desperate. They're going to have to throw to win, in theory. And Nebraska's pass rush is just getting better week by week. I think they're going to get to him. So whether they bring him down or not, I think it's going to force Maryland into some tricky situations, 3rd and longs, things like that. Whereas Nebraska's offense should be humming, and they should be able to make plays. I think if I was going to make a prediction, Nebraska's going to try to run the ball on these guys, right? Because if you can inflict force onto a team that's inferior to you, that's how you break their will, right? And by the end of the game, if they're just getting run down, it's going to be looking like the Michigan State game where you separate and then there's no looking back. Nebraska was only up, I think, 7 points at one point, or it was a tie game, and I felt like the tide turned. I felt like, okay, Nebraska's going to win this game because they're just the bigger, stronger, more physical team. And eventually that takes over in a lot of spots. That's my initial thought, at least. I think Nebraska's covering this game. And I think if I had to say path to victory, it's Nebraska's run game with Emmett Johnson running for 100 yards. Unless you think that is Maryland going to stop Emmett Johnson?
The bigger concern I have, the only one I would have for Nebraska is Maryland's true freshman edges are good. So you do want to run. If you have to put Dillon behind that O-line and have him throw it over and over and over again, that could be how you beat Maryland by 40 because he looks really good. There's also the other outcome where maybe he throws an early pick on a rainy, windy day because he gets pressure in his face, and that's how Maryland stays in.
Well, that's what happened when Nebraska played Maryland at home a couple of years ago, right? And Maryland ended up winning that game. It was ugly. I'm not sure if it was windy. I think it was. It was cold out, and Nebraska just couldn't get their offense going at all.
Yeah, I think Nebraska wins like probably 27, 31, 24 to 7 or 10. Like they're going to hold Maryland to 10 points or less than that.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like that Michigan State game where they got tricky, quarterback runs really, gash Nebraska. I agree with you. I'm way less concerned this week about this game than I was last week with Michigan State, at this point at least, even though the spread is almost half of what it was. Brad, thank you for being a member for 32 months. He says, my two favorite FOL dudes, football dudes. Love watching you. Appreciate you, Brad. Thanks for being here. Rod, thanks for being a member. Thank you for the $10 super chat. He says Pritchett will have a very busy day. They changed the depth chart. They put Gunnar Gatula on the right and they put Pritchett at the left, right? Gunnar Gatula got absolutely mauled against Michigan. Looked better against Michigan State. I think Nebraska, they're a team that, although they might win 9 or 10, they aren't at that upper echelon of the Big Ten yet, right? To be at the upper part of the Big Ten, you've got to have a line that can dominate against good teams. And I just don't think Nebraska has that. However, their line is better than average. And when you play teams like Maryland, even a Minnesota, obviously a Northwestern, I think the line's going to look fine. So I'm optimistic about the O-line that Nebraska's coming in with. You have the BS penalties and they'll have a couple missed blocks that lead to a sack. As long as you don't have, a strip sack or something that forces Dillon to throw a pick, you can survive in the Big Ten with this schedule, right?
Absolutely.
Some of the people in the chat are saying 38-20 Nebraska. That's what Don't Get Me Started has. If Nebraska was able to get that much of a lead, let's say they got a 10-point lead pretty early on by half, I think they're going to be able to separate. And that's where you see Nebraska win it by 3 touchdowns or more, right? Sam, we don't have Prize Picks lines now, but I just want to know what your thoughts would be when they do come up. Right now, we only have the Red Devils for who's going to score a touchdown, which these are just total guesses, right? Outside of Emmett Johnson, who's a Green Goblin for scoring 1, it's hard for me to take any of these because it's just a guess. If I did have to guess, I would probably take like a Ja'Cory Barney or an Isaiah Hunter. They're the most consistent, in my opinion, right now. But I'm leaning, when these lines do come out, I'm leaning taking Emmett Johnson rush and receiving yards or Emmett Johnson receiving yards. He's getting I think 6 catches a game or 8 catches a game. Against Cincinnati, he had a bunch. He went for, I think, 40 in that game. I could see this being a similar situation where Nebraska just dumps off to him a lot. I also like taking Malik Washington pass yards. I think they're going to be desperate and all they're going to be able to do is throw. And, Nebraska's had some leaky moments. So if he gets a couple deeper downfield, that could help him hit that number. I'd take potentially Maryland's running back under. I don't know what his line will be. It might be really low, in which case I might have to hit the over. But those are the leans I have at this point. I'm not sure what you're thinking, Sam.
Maryland running back under, I totally agree with. Malik Washington over passing. Depends on what the line is. Obviously, I don't know that.
Yeah.
But I do think Nebraska's secondary against a pass. I mean, look what they did to Michigan State. I mean, Michigan State couldn't. I mean, I know part of that was wind, but Michigan State couldn't throw it in the ocean, and they have really good receivers. Their passing offense is what Maryland wishes it had. So I don't know if they're going to have. I mean, the more I look into this, the more I think that Maryland is going to struggle to score at all. That's why I
Yeah.
think, 3, 7, or 10 points is all they're going to really get here.
It's funny. Let
As
me
for
pause you there. It's funny we say that, right? Because every time we think that, then these teams Nebraska plays go off, and we're like, what the hell is going on? How did they just score 28 points? They were supposed to get shut out, right?
like UCLA last year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Similar situation.
Yeah. Emmett Johnson, I would love that. I mean, he's healthy right now, so they're going to give him the carries and they're going to give him the catches. And against a defense like this, which I think is analytically overvalued, you'll probably get a pretty good number and you'll get a discount on what he'll actually do because Maryland analytically looks really, really good defensively. I'm talking like top 15, top 20 good. They're not actually that good.
Yeah, I agree with that. Here's a question from Rushy. He says, what do you think about Nebraska hiring an offensive tackle specialist instead of outright firing Raiola? Pull a Satterfield Holgerson and demote him later on to center's coach. It's funny, I talked about this in my post-game reaction, I think, and it was a little bit of a joke because that's not realistic. You're not going to hire a second offensive line coach. I would think they would just have to move on from Raiola if they were going to do that. I think Nebraska is going to get to the end of this. This is my prediction. Who knows what's going to happen? I think they're going to get to the end of the season. They're going to say, look, the line was serviceable in our important games throughout the year, like the big ones. Yeah, they may have underperformed, but we don't have the talent to match up with Michigan or Penn State, USC. Let's see what happens there. And we just need to get better. We need to pay more money to get the best guys. I think that's how Rule's going to look at it, but we'll see. I don't think they're bringing in additional support on the line, though, as a coach, right? Unless the team just totally fell apart. The team would have to win 7 games this year, maybe 8, and things go really bad on the O-line. Maybe then you can make the case. But to get rid of your offensive line coach when he's still trying to build it up in Matt Rule's head, just a little early. That's my take. But yeah, it would be awesome to see somebody like Sam Pittman or somebody who's been really good. But then they could come in and you don't know if they're going to be great, right? So it's a real tough situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your thought?
Oh, I was just going to mention what Ohio State did. And even Michigan's done this. Michigan has 2 offensive line coaches. I think Ohio State is 3. But that would be shocking given how it's not like the offensive line has gotten worse every year.
Right.
They have made steps forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the offensive line just needs to get some bigger bodies in and get guys who are real NFL linemen. Nebraska hasn't had that many NFL guys, right, on the line recently. And like Bryce Benhart was projected to be an NFL lineman. And then last year he had some ups and downs. Nebraska needs a true second or third round pick, right, to really compete with the top teams like a Michigan who's going to have. Where do you think Barham's going to go? Is he a second round pick, third round pick?
Barham's a day 2 guy. I'm not an NFL expert because
Yeah,
NFL values like measurables
of
way more
course.
than college. So D'Angelo Pons is an All-American corner at Indiana, but because he's 5'9", the odds of him getting drafted in the first round are next to nothing. Just is what it is.
Yep.
Barham, I think, 6'3", 240 pounds, and with how he's looked at edge, if he continues playing that well, could maybe be a first rounder. Like he's pretty
Yeah,
good.
he's fast. He's awesome. He looked good against Nebraska. I mean, he completely obliterated them, right?
Yes.
There's a question from Rod. He asked about Luke Lindenmeyer and his production last week. I think he only had like 1 catch. And I would say that just game plan didn't allow for it, or they wanted to focus on using their receivers. It could have been the blocking. I don't know. But I think we know what Luke Lindenmeyer is, and we know Nebraska's in the past, they've tended to neglect their tight end. I don't know why last week, after using him so much, the first few, he didn't get as many looks. But yeah, it could have been the blocking. I have no idea what the answer to that question is. I would hope that if they're not going to use Luke as a receiver, he's in there blocking, and that's going to help their offensive line. But I didn't even look at that last week. That wasn't my focus. My focus was watching Dylan and how fast he got the ball out, and that was what I was more concerned with. That's where I'm looking to see Nebraska make an improvement this week. I mean, every week you got to get better, right? What's one thing you can improve on? Dylan needs to get the ball out faster. Who is it that's going to tell him that? And is there going to be a game plan to make sure that happens? I don't know. Born and Husker says, I'm concerned about the offensive line protecting Raiola and giving him time in the pocket. Your thoughts? This week, I'm not as concerned about that. There's always going to be an issue with that playing in the Big Ten, but Nebraska's not playing an off or a defensive line that's so dominant. He's going to get abused the entire time, and Nebraska's going to be able to run the ball a little bit. So if they can run the ball, then I think Nebraska's going to be just fine. I think maybe we project 2 sacks for this game, right? There's going to be a sack in every game at this point, the way the offensive line's playing. Maybe not against Northwestern. We'll see, but yeah, I'm not too worried about that. The concern is the pass game for Maryland goes off. Nebraska's secondary is weak. When that happens, it opens up the run. Or sorry, if the pass game doesn't go well, it starts to open up the run for Maryland. Start to try and do that. Then when that goes, Maryland starts to throw the ball. If Maryland starts to throw it and takes advantage of Nebraska secondary and gets some shit going downfield, you have their strength winning against Nebraska, and it turns into a shootout. Nebraska has shown us that they can't win a shootout. Like, Nebraska is not going to be the team who's going to score 38 points in the Big Ten. That's my projection. They did it against Michigan State last week because you had special teams touchdown, but their offense isn't going to be a team that scores 38 a game. We hoped they were. I think this year Nebraska projected to be a 35 points a game type of offense. I was reading the Phil Steele magazine the other day, actually. I think it was like 35-ish. They have not grown that much on that side of the ball, which is one of the most frustrating things. You got to have some help with the special teams. You got to have some help with the defense. So hopefully all that comes through and we see points scored. But if we get into a shootout, I'm going to be a little bit nervous.
Yeah, that's one thing that has shocked me about Nebraska this year is the defense hasn't taken as much of a step back as I thought. Special teams has drastically improved.
Yep.
And the offense hasn't taken the type of step forward that I thought it was going to.
Defense was a B+ last year. I expected them to be a C+ this year. Maybe a B-. Defense, in my opinion, is exactly the same as they were last year. It's just they're a little bit better against the pass. Their linebackers are fast. They get to the quarterback still and from the edge rusher positions, just not the interior D line. And the secondary is solid. So yeah, defense is where it needs to be, but the offense just feels like it made a subtle jump. Nothing to write home about where you're like, oh yeah, this was the offense we expected. This was the Dana Holgorsen improvement that we saw coming. So I'm still afraid for Nebraska to get into a shootout with a team that can throw the ball. That's going to be one of my biggest concerns when they play USC. USC has an offense that's going to score on Nebraska's D. That's a fact. USC has so many ways to get it done. They have a great run game. They have a great pass game. It's going to be really challenging that day. If USC scores 35, is Nebraska going to be able to match without special teams plays and without turnovers? I don't know that. That's where I'm concerned. And right now we've got this 3-game stretch where the offenses aren't as complete. They're not as potent, and Nebraska should be able to dominate on the defensive side. So I don't know, Sam, it's a tough situation when you put all your eggs in one basket in terms of the offense for Nebraska, and you just believe, okay, they rebuilt, they purchased all of these great players in the portal, and they're supposed to look so much better. And in some ways they do, but they just haven't looked as good as we had thought they would, right? They should be able to impose their will, not struggle for 2 quarters against teams like Michigan State and only score 7 points, right? Am I thinking crazy, or is that a logical response?
No, I don't think it's crazy. No. What I will say, at least from my perspective, is perhaps I overvalued Holgorsen coming in the middle of last year, and maybe I mistakenly kind of counted that as year 1 and almost viewed this as year 2. This really is his first year with a full preseason to work with everything. So I would assume that next year it'll be much better and you'll see like the actual entire Holgorsen offense system and all the improvements. I don't think it's crazy though. No, I mean, Michigan State could have won that game without having a rushing offense. And I thought they would have needed a rushing offense to win. And
they did need a rushing offense. They needed their quarterback to come through for them on the ground. He converted multiple times.
Yeah.
But they didn't need an imposing rushing offense.
Exactly. And I thought they needed an imposing one. Thank you for that correction. But it has been, they've been scoring, I think, in the way I thought they would this year. But it has more to do with the defense getting more stops or turnovers, or the special teams making more of their field goals or getting favorable punt returns or blocked punts, than it has to do with the offense making these dominant drives or plays at a consistent rate.
Fair. Dave, Thanks for being a member. Thanks for the 45-20. This is his score prediction, by the way, Sam. He says, great seeing Sam out here again. If it doesn't rain, I see 45-20 Nebraska. This includes a pick six and a Barney punt return for a TD. He's a dude. He's due. Turtles get some garbage time points. If Nebraska wins 45 to, let's say it was 13, and they end up, Maryland scores a backdoor to try and get in at the end so it doesn't look as bad as it is, I am going to be really excited about their prospects against Minnesota. I think the line will reflect that too, and I'll be really confident that they're going to go into USC a 7-1 team, right? So I pray it happens, Dave. I can't get that bullish on Nebraska yet because the offense is still concerning, and I can't bet on Ja'Cory Barney returning one for a TD, although I pray he does. If they do, I'm going to make sure I remember you're the one who called it. But a Nebraska punt return touchdown, a Nebraska blocked punt, those are the type of plays they need in these scenarios to win these games and score 35 plus. So I hope you're right. Evan, thank you for being a member. Thank you for the $5 super chat. I'm not too worried about this one. We match up well against them, and they always start hot in the season before falling off. Nebraska, 34-21 GBR. It's very true. A lot of teams in the Big Ten do that, right? They start off 3-1, 4-1. Michigan State last week. In the past, we've seen Northwestern or Minnesota start hotter, and then they lose some down the stretch. But yeah, I think a lot of people are of the same belief, Evan. Nebraska should be able to win by 13, 14, and cruise so that they can get focused on Minnesota. That's the game that I think a lot of people have circled, the one that we're a lot more nervous about. History says that's going to be more challenging, whereas this Maryland matchup should be manageable. So I'm hoping. Let's go through some games, Sam. I just want to get your thoughts on others around the country. So first off, I want to look at the Big Ten standings just to show you how tight everything is right now. Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon, all undefeated. Then look at all the one-loss teams. Michigan, Illinois, USC, Washington, Maryland, Nebraska. I mean, a lot of teams competing right now at the top. You have one crazy upset, like in Illinois knocking Ohio State down a rung, or Indiana knocking down Oregon a rung. It's like, whew, could shake things up. I'm really excited to watch the new Big Ten because I know anything can happen when you have all of these good teams, kind of like what we saw last week with Penn State and UCLA. What's your initial thought on that? Like, do you think Penn State rebounds and they finish this year 9 wins, or do you think it's more likely that they fall off and finish with 7?
More likely at this point they fall off and finish with 7 because of how they've looked in their games. They've never played to what I think their potential is. And since we're through 5 games, that means they just may not have that level of potential. That's kind of where I'm beginning to settle at. But I do think they either completely implode and continue playing this way, or they win out. There's too much talent there. And as good as Ohio State and Indiana have looked, they're not GOAT caliber teams. And Penn State has ways, I think, to compete with them and even beat them.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of a mentality thing. I think Franklin, I don't know if you listened to the post-game press conference clips that he had after the Oregon game, but he was asked about losing in these big games, and he started off saying, well, there's this narrative. Actually, it's not a narrative. Yeah, it's true. We can't win the big games is basically what he said. So I think that there's either they're going to mentally break because they invested all that they could in that Oregon game and they couldn't get over the hump, or they're going to, finally grow a pair and show what they should have showed and what we thought they had preseason.
So go back to what you said, where you think it's either they implode or they go on a run and they win out. There's no way you think they would win out. You realize they play at Iowa, at Ohio State, then they play Indiana all back to back to back. There's no way they go 3-0 in those games. If they went 1-2, I'd be impressed with that. 2-1 would be a miracle, right? I just think this is a 7-win team, 8 at best in a dream world. And yeah, it's crazy to see how the mighty have fallen. Although you can argue, were they ever that mighty? They had a really good schedule last year that got them into the playoff. They played Boise in their first playoff game. This is a Penn State team who has continued to let their fans down, and they haven't been able to get over the hump. Obviously, I'd rather be a Penn State fan than a Nebraska fan in recent history, but it's still gross, right? It's still, we cannot win the big game. I was watching a TikTok clip where it showed all the highlights of every big game they've lost over the past 5 years. It is disgusting. It reminds me a little bit of a Bo Pelini, Nebraska, right? Obviously, they're more dominant than the Bo Pelini, Nebraska teams because they're able to win 10 a year and get to the BCS games. But yeah, they're very similar in the sense that, are you going to continue to settle with this coach who just can't get it done? Or are you going to say, screw this, we're Penn State, we're going to go and steal a really good coach from a smaller school and we're going to start to win at a higher level, right? It's tough. Generation Red says, how cool would it be if the Huskers got bowl eligible in October? I mean, it's get bowl eligible in October or it's this season's a disaster. And I'll tell you why. If you look at Nebraska's schedule, you have to win 2 out of 3 of these games, right? You're going to be favored in all 3, Maryland, Minnesota, and Northwestern. If you don't go if you go 2-1 in this stretch, it will be a massive letdown. I mean, the fan base will be deflated. We'll be so frustrated. The national respect that Nebraska has right now is going to be out the door, okay? They should be, I don't know, what do you think the line will be on the Minnesota game? 4.5 points in Nebraska's favor?
It won't be enough because I don't care that they look good analytically. Good defenses don't let that Cal QB throw 3 touchdowns and no picks. Like Minnesota is 2023 Minnesota bad, and Nebraska's so far beyond what they were that year.
So let's say Nebraska's a 4.5, 5.5, 6.5 point favorite in that game as well, right? If you lose one of those games where you're a 7-point favorite in every single one, Northwestern, they're going to be more than a 7-point favorite at home. They'll be 10.5, 11.5, 14.5 maybe, right? Depending on how Northwestern looks at that point. My point is they're going to be bowl eligible or the tires will fall off. And we will realize that Nebraska's best efforts gets them to 8-4 this year. So I hope Generation Red that they go bowling in October. That's the expectation. It would be a massive letdown if they didn't do so. So just say your prayers at night. Let's make sure they get there. Alan, thanks for being a member. Thank you for the $10 super chat. He says, great seeing you, Sam, and your valued insights. Hopefully we'll see a step forward on offense GBR. I think that's kind of the main thing we're all looking for. When will Nebraska take the step forward? When will this offense show that they're as good as we had hoped they were, or at least that they have the potential to be? We haven't seen the explosion. We haven't seen the big plays outside of a few big catches from receivers, the Hail Mary that Dylan had. Where's a consistent, crazy drive? And then put that together 2 or 3 times a game to show that they are one of the better offenses in the Big Ten. That's what we're still waiting on. It's hard to watch. Felix says Nebraska is getting national respect. So they aren't getting national respect in terms of the polls, but I think people respect Nebraska more now. Sam, what's your take on that? I mean, after the Michigan game, I think it kind of dropped, but after the Michigan State game, I think people are starting to look back and say, okay, Nebraska lost to a really good Michigan game. Cincinnati beat Iowa State. Cincinnati's obviously knocking on the door of the AP poll. I think this is a Nebraska team that people look at and say, maybe they're not a playoff contender. They aren't bought in fully yet, but they believe this is a team that's going to win 9 games.
Nebraska doesn't get national respect from the perspective that everyone's oogling their eyes over their players and they know everything about them, or at least pretend to. Yeah. But they got national respect in the sense that the majority of analysts I saw thought that Nebraska was going to beat Michigan. And I think that's giving some respect at least.
Yeah. They thought they were going to beat Michigan. They thought they were going to beat Michigan State. I know everyone's going to pick them to beat Maryland. I think the media is on Nebraska's side. When you're a 7-point favorite in every single game you play, and that will be the case for 4 games in a row. Michigan State, 11.5. Maryland, 7. Minnesota, let's say, a 7. Northwestern's going to be 11.5. You're going to get respect. And people can say they have to beat USC, but if they beat USC, that takes them into the next level. That's the upper echelon. That's, Nebraska's a for real Big Ten contender, right? There's a difference between respecting a team and respecting them to the point where you say, they can compete with the Indianas, Penn States, Ohio States, Michigans, Illinois of this conference, right? But keeping it close with Michigan was a good first step. Let's see. Evan says, hate to think about this, but I'm curious about your guys' opinion on the rumor that Penn State's going to pursue Rule if they decide to let Franklin go after the season. I'll let you start with that, Sam. I have my own opinion.
unless Matt Rule this year, like unless they beat USC, beat Penn State in Beaver Stadium, and win 11 games, which with how the schedule's looking, it is possible. Honestly, I mean, I thought that Penn State was going to be this amazing team. They're not. And Nebraska looks as good as I thought they would. I mean, the path to winning out, while not likely, is there with some of the issues these teams are facing. But something that people have always criticized Matt Rule for, and I haven't been very critical of him in this regard, but it is notable, he hasn't, beaten a ranked opponent at Nebraska. He hasn't beaten a lot of them even in his rebuilds, like at Baylor when they won 11 games that year. I think they maybe beat one ranked opponent or none at all.
Yep.
And I think a lot of Penn State people would look at that and think of Curt Cignetti at Indiana, who's from Pittsburgh, so you have that local connection, or you think of some other coaches who have local connections or who are at smaller schools, and you may want to pursue them if you're Penn State, looking at the angle that got James Franklin in trouble, which is big wins. Not saying Rule won't win those. I'm just saying.
So you're trying to take the position that Penn State wouldn't be interested in Rule.
They only would be if they have that year 3 breakout and win 3 games and win 11 games.
Fair. I think what's interesting so I agree with you. I don't think I'm going to take a different stance. I don't think Matt Rule would leave Nebraska at this stage. He's put too much effort in and he wants to see it through. If we were talking about 3 years from now and he accomplished a bit more, there was a different circumstance going on, maybe we could talk about Matt Rule leaving, but he is not leaving Nebraska at this stage in his career. He's too deep in trying to build roots, and it would be really funky to just dip out after investing so much effort, time, and love into the program. I just wouldn't make sense. He's not leaving for any job. He does believe Nebraska can be one of those tier 1 jobs. That's the first thing. The other thing is the question I have, what do you think about Cignetti? I have Indiana fans who I'm friends with who don't believe Cignetti would leave Indiana. They're like, no, he's done. He's not going anywhere. He's like the Matt Rule of Indiana. What's your thought on that?
I agree with you that I don't think Rule would leave Nebraska. With like rare exception, and that exception being like what happened with Lincoln Riley and USC. No one saw that coming. So under normal circumstances, I don't think he's leaving Nebraska.
Yep.
I think it's the same way with Curt Cignetti in Indiana, because Indiana has money. Indiana has serious donors, people in the business school. They're really hyped about football, invested there.
Now that they're winning, they're even more in.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not kidding when I say that if they beat Oregon this weekend, they're going to start, and a lot of this is intuition, but if they beat Oregon, they're going to get blue chip recruits, and they're going to start pulling in recruiting classes that other Big Ten schools won't like, because they're taking recruits away from them and strengthening Indiana's floor and ceiling. I mean, they feel like a powder keg that could explode depending on if they beat that Oregon team this weekend or if they win another big game down the road.
Yeah, 100%. Lose to Oregon, but beat Penn State, finish 11-1. My God. Indiana, what they've done in the first 2 years is incredible. So, yeah, they're on their way. Well, Sam, I'm going to let you get out of here. I know you have another show to get to. Thank you for being on with me. Thanks for talking about the Big Ten tonight. We'll get back on in a few weeks, I'm sure. Yeah. Go Nebraska, go Michigan, and I'll talk to you soon.
Go Big Red.
Peace. Make sure you guys subscribe to Sam's channel. If you haven't done it yet, you can click his name in the title of the video and go watch some of his videos. He does great breakdowns. For all the videos I won't do because I'm a little bit too busy now, we're passing Sam the torch. His breakdown videos are really good, so support him. He's a young guy who's getting after it, which I freaking love to see. Jim says, former Northwestern coach to Penn State. Thank you for the 234, Jim. What's interesting about that is he just got a big payout. Who knows, 50 million, 70 million? He got a lot of money for wrongful termination at Northwestern. And he's still, 45 to 50 years old? He's ready to get back into coaching. And Pat Fitzgerald at a place like Penn State, could you imagine? I love the idea. I don't know if that would happen, but it does sound interesting. Berkeley says, we've been over-respected the last 5 years. Need to win this season to earn it going forward. Nebraska's been over-respected because of their brand, right? That's a common thing in the AP polls with the national media. They always like to hype these teams up. So I agree with you on that. I think you just got to win these three. If Nebraska wins these three, has USC coming in, they're a 7-1 team ranked in the top 25. That's where you earn it. That's where you prove we're here. We made that Matt Rule year 3 jump. Exciting times ahead. I'm freaking pumped up. Ryan, thank you for the $5 super chat. I thought I heard that Dana isn't even running his offense. He kept the previous offense and is still learning it himself. So Dana is using elements of his offense and incorporating it into what Nebraska already had. So we're seeing a mix of what Nebraska was rocking with under Matt Rule, because Matt Rule's the one who was trying to coordinate things to some degree and get his hands on it. But we're also seeing Dana as the play caller and trying to add in his touch. So I wouldn't look too much into that. We're not seeing the classic Dana offense, but we are still seeing plays he wants to run, and he's incorporating his own stuff, right? So Dana's still in charge. Don't worry about that. Yeah, no one thinks Penn State is a job that Matt Rule's going to take. Jose says 50 million is a lot to fire Franklin. Yeah, it's a lot. But if they do want to get rid of him because he can't win the big game, I wouldn't blame him. You do what you got to do. The money right now in college football is through the roof. So you can afford 50 million. That's just the reality. The amount of money that Penn State makes if they get back is well worth covering that. Rushy says, Connor, did you see the Josh Pate poll? Yeah, I did see the Josh Pate poll. You're talking about his rankings, right? Let's see, Josh Pate. Josh Pate, top 25. People actually respect this poll. This isn't the AP poll. The AP poll's a joke. Josh Pate's poll is not. So Josh Pate has Miami 1, Ohio State 2, Oregon 3, A&M 4, Ole Miss 5. That's a respectable top 5. I can look at that and say I've watched all these teams play. They have quality wins, like A&M beat Notre Dame, Ole Miss beat LSU, Ohio State beat Texas, Miami beat Florida State and Florida. Oregon beat Penn State. I mean, OU beat Michigan. It makes sense when you look at a poll like this and you see teams and what they have, right? Vanderbilt in the top 15, Cincy in the top 20. Although I don't really agree with Cincy over Nebraska. And then you have Nebraska down there at 24, right behind ASU. Interestingly enough, in Josh Pate's poll next week, we'll see Nebraska jump ASU most likely because ASU likely loses to Utah, but Utah could jump Nebraska. So interesting. 1 year removed from the playoff, and Nebraska's on the same level as an ASU. Keep in mind they're a Big 12 team, so you can only do so much with that kind of money and, that kind of school. But Jose says Dana said it himself. He goes into the game 50-50 run pass and makes adjustments as the game goes on. And I think that's what people get so hung up on and worry about. You can't worry about what the split is. You got to worry about what the game flow is and what he's calling at that specific time. I know there were times in the past, like Nebraska played against Michigan a couple years ago, 2023, and they tried to run it up the middle with Harburg, and people thought, what the hell was that play call? Why would you do it, right? And situationally, maybe if you're a better play caller and you've got something up your sleeve, you're going to call something that works better. I look more to that than I do to like situational play calling than I do to what their splits are and how often they run the ball versus pass it. I don't put too much stock in there, but some people do, It is what it is. Saray says, did you see Texas Tech's new logo they're coming out with? I did. Texas Tech, let's pull that up. It's interesting. They're rebranding. So Texas Tech's going flat. They dumped. This is an alternate logo for this week, by the way. This isn't their logo. This is their alternate jersey they're wearing against Kansas. Right there. But they are going flat. They're dropping that beveled look. So here it is, the new logos. I don't hate it. You know what I mean? Like, look at that. It's just a little flatter. I mean, the colors look nice. It's Texas Tech, traditional look. It's odd in the modern era of college football to go back to this because this feels a little bit 80s, 90s, not 90s, like 80s, 70s even. I've got my football ticket collection, and some of the logos on my football ticket collection from tickets that are old look like that Texas Tech logo. I don't know. It's cool. It's got character. I don't hate it. If Nebraska did something like that, I would be like, what the hell are we doing? But when you're Texas Tech, you can afford to rebrand once or twice, Texas Tech is stepping into a new era. They're spending so much damn money. I get why they want to come up with a rebrand. Tyler Tyler says, what, in your opinion, is it going to take for us to lose this game? I think it's very simple. Nebraska allows Maryland to take a lead and to have a pass offense, a pass game. It's going to be really hard for them to win in a shootout. Like if Nebraska has to come in and score 35 points with their offense, that's detrimental. That's where they lose games. We thought the offense was going to be able to win in situations like that. We learned they will not be able to. At least up to this point, it doesn't look like they're going to be able to. They struggled against Cincinnati. They struggled against Michigan. It took, to beat Michigan State, it took defensive turnovers. It took special teams turnovers and big plays. So those are my fears. But I just don't think Maryland's capable of doing that. I think Nebraska's in a really good spot. So I'm not worried. Brothrow is our sponsor. If you sign up with code CORN, brothrow.com/corn, you get a $10 free bet, and you can take any game you want this week against the spread, even money, which means if we go over here to Nebraska, I'm trying to find them down my list. Here they are. Nebraska's -6.5 right now. Everyone's on them. I'm going to put a bet up. If you take Nebraska for $50, it pays $50. Unlike when you play on other websites where 50 would pay you 45. If you bet on enough games over time, that starts to add up. I've won over $100,000 using Brothrow, so I've earned an additional $10,700 that I wouldn't have if I bet on FanDuel, DraftKings, a sportsbook, any of those. So I love using Brothrow for obvious reasons, as you can see right here. And they're our partner this year because it just makes sense. I'm going to go through a few of my picks for this week, actually. I'll do them right here on Brothrow. We've got games pulled up. Rutgers, Washington. I lean Rutgers with 10.5 points. I know it's a cross-country game, but it just feels like a lot. Cincinnati -11 against Central Florida. I'm staying away from. Love Cincinnati, but I don't know. Scott Frost might have some magic up his sleeve. An interesting one is UCLA, Michigan State. UCLA's +8.5. Does UCLA have magic with their coordinator? Is Nico Iamaleava going to be this new and improved QB that he wasn't under Deshaun Foster? I lean yes. I would take UCLA +8.5 here. I don't know if I'm going to do it yet, but I lean UCLA. Alabama, Mizzou, really exciting game because it means a lot in the SEC. Alabama off back-to-back big weeks. Georgia win. Vandy win at home. I think I'm taking Missouri this week. Crazy. Bo Prabula, Ahmad Hardy. I think Missouri is my play. Ohio State, Illinois, I'm not touching. Know nothing about that. OU, Texas. OU's a 1.5 point dog. John Mateer is expected to play. I'm taking OU. I got them at 9.5 back in the summer. So I got a way too early line, and yeah, I'm really lucky with that. Happy with it. Excited. Iowa State, Colorado, 3-point spread. Interesting. Thought about taking Iowa State, but with a line that tight, might have to ride Colorado. We'll see. Indiana, for the fun of it, I might just throw that 7.5. I might have to do it just because why not? Arkansas versus Tennessee. Arkansas is +12.5. Arkansas down bad without their coach, or Arkansas up big because they got their OG coach back in Bobby Petrino. They still have an offense. The total's set to 68, which means I think there's going to be a lot of points scored. I'd probably take Arkansas, but I can't bet it. I bet Arkansas against Notre Dame. They were +4.5 at home, and they got absolutely worked. So I still have a bad taste in my mouth. I'm going to stay off Arkansas for the time being. Iowa's at Wisconsin, night game. I think Gronowski might not play. I'm still taking Iowa. 3.5 is a lot, though. I might take Iowa money line. Yeah, Iowa money line might be my play. Florida and Texas A&M. I'm taking Florida +7.5. It's the SEC. They're in a do or die situation. Their coach wants to keep his job. If you want to keep your job and you want to fight for him, go and win this game. They're probably not going to. Texas A&M is really good. I'm pulling for Texas A&M, by the way. I want to see them be successful. But Florida plus the points. USC I'm taking -2.5. That's already locked in. Georgia, Auburn. I'm taking Georgia -3.5 at Auburn. I don't trust Auburn yet. And what else? Utah, Arizona State. I have Utah money line. I don't have anything on the spread. Interesting situation. Could be a rain game. So we'll have to see. It'll be exciting. It's going to be a fun weekend. Like I've told you guys 3 times already, I'm going to be at the OU Texas game. So I'm not going to be able to watch Nebraska, Maryland. It's the first time that I'm not watching a Nebraska game, like live, in years. It might be 6 years. I can't remember the last time this happened, honestly. It's been a long freaking time. So I'm going to be tracking it on my phone, on my ESPN app. How gross is that? You have a Nebraska football YouTube channel. You're not even watching the game. Again, I got to live my life. I got to experience some things. The Red River Shootout, I got to experience that. So I'm going to do that, going with my dad and my best friend, Jacob. I haven't bought my tickets yet. I've been on SeatGeek scouting, waiting for the prices to come down. I would scout, but we're going in a pair or a set of 3, not a pair. If I just needed 2, I'd get them from scalpers, but I want to sit together, so I got to buy them in advance. I will say the tickets have dropped from like 1,100 for where I want to sit all the way down to like 550. So I'm optimistic that we'll get into the 4s. We'll see. If I see something pop up tonight for like 475, I'll probably pull the trigger. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Rushy says, just bring a pocket radio. What's crazy about a pocket radio is I would feel like an old man. Have you seen those old dudes at the stadium who have that little pocket radio with wired headphones? I remember going to USC games as a kid, and you'd have all these guys sitting next to us who would have those pocket radios. They'd have this notebook and they're writing shit down. I'm like, what are these guys doing? I just can't do it. As much as I love Nebraska, I'm not putting a wired headphone in and carrying a pocket radio around. I refuse. I'll just enjoy my time on the ESPN app watching the play-by-play. Tyler says, my buddy's wedding starts at 3 on Saturday. I feel your pain. Hey, Tyler, respect to you for showing up. My friends have all been alerted, my family as well, my sister, everyone, that I will be unable to attend a wedding that is scheduled between September 1st, sometimes maybe even August like 31st, all the way until December 1st. They have 52 weeks in a year, and you want to choose one of the 12 weekends where I enjoy football. Do it on Sunday, do it on Friday, but I'm not going to give you one of my Saturdays. I'm not. So respect to you for giving up a Saturday. I would never. Hugh, thank you for being a member. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Hey, Connor, did you get a chance to read the PDF I sent you on Discord? Herbcat is my screen name on there. I promise it isn't a virus. I haven't looked at the PDF you sent me. I've got a lot going on, so I've been very busy. I will check my Discord after this, and I will read the PDF. I promise you. Stu says, Connor, what's your next big new venue game? So this week's the Oklahoma-Texas game. Then I'm going to the Nebraska-USC game in Lincoln. Then after that, I'm going to Nebraska at the Rose Bowl against UCLA, but I've been to that venue 50 times. Then I know what it is. I'm going to Athens, Georgia for Texas and Georgia. So that will be my next big venue. I've never been to Georgia. I've been to multiple Georgia games. I went to Florida, Georgia in Jacksonville back in 2000. What year was that? 2000. There we go. 2011, 2010, 2009, when I think Tim Tebow won the Heisman or they won the national championship. I'm actually going to show you something. Hang on. Okay. So it was 2008. So I'll tell the story of the hat really quick, just because I don't know if I've told it before. I probably have. I was in high school. I was a sophomore. And my dad and I wanted to go to a big game. There's the ticket. I have the ticket right there. So my dad and I wanted to go to a big game. We chose the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, I think is what they nickname it. We pull up to the hotel. We're staying at TPC Sawgrass. My dad ran a really big golf company called American Golf. So we went there because he had connections there. And we stayed in the same exact hotel as the Florida Gators. Tim Tebow, Percy Harvin, Urban Meyer, Joe Hayden, Lewis Murphy. I remember the whole fucking team. Okay. Loved them back then. 2008 Florida. We bought this hat at, who knows, Dick's Sporting Goods or something when we went to the movies that night. Just because I thought, well, if we see the players, I want to have a white hat that they can autograph. I sat in the lobby of that hotel and had all the players sign this hat for like 3 hours. Talked to them all. I was 15 years old, I think, sophomore in high school. I had my Servite hoodie on, which we were like a national champion level high school at that point, football wise. So all the players were talking about Servite, which was cool. And yeah, I got this hat. At the bottom underneath, it has Urban Meyer's signature. So I got the whole team in the hotel the night before. Then the morning of, we're walking out of the stadium, or walking out of the hotel to get in the car to go to the stadium. Urban Meyer standing at the bus, just looking for like, who's going to get on, like what players are later. I said, hey, coach, can you sign my hat? Takes the hat, flips it upside down, signs the inside of the bill, sends me on my way. It was freaking awesome. That was one of my favorite games. Anyway, I just say it because that was a Georgia game I went to. I've been to Georgia in the national championship. I went to Georgia against Tennessee a couple of years ago when they beat the shit out of Tennessee in Knoxville. I went to one other Georgia game. I can't remember which one. Oh, Georgia Ole Miss last year. Electric. Electric. Rushed the field. I rushed the field myself wearing my Ole Miss jersey. That was awesome. Anyway, that's the next one I'm going to. Sam says I'm going to the USC game too. Hey, it's going to be a fun day. I'm telling you, that USC game is going to be fire. I cannot wait to rock my blackout Nebraska jersey. The black setting. USC Nebraska is going to be electric. Never mind me says my sister had a wedding on a football Saturday. Still haven't forgiven her. Brother, it's not her fault. It's your fault. I'm just being real with you. She chose that day. You chose to go. We can't blame your sister for having it on that day. We can only blame ourselves for agreeing to go. I'm not blaming my sister for having her wedding on a college football Saturday. However, she cannot blame me for rejecting the invite. It's a you issue, not a her issue. Just saying. Jose says, I would love to go to the Rose Bowl. I'm a Nebraska fan and my neighbor is UCLA. He always reminds me about last year. Ooh, the Rose Bowl's fun for the right game. I've been to a lot of games in the Rose Bowl that were like fire, you know, back when Maurice Jones-Drew was the running back at UCLA, back when Matt Rule was on the coaching staff, those days, UCLA games were fun because UCLA mattered. They were relevant in the Pac-12. Fast forward and they're not as fun. They're just dead. I think the last UCLA game I went to was probably in 2018. My sister went to UCLA, so I went to a few UCLA games with her. But that was probably 2017, 2018. And it was just empty, dead energy, vacant. The Rose Bowl itself is lit. I've been to some Rose Bowls, like USC Penn State 2017. USC hit a walk-off field goal. Saquon Barkley with a kick return for a touchdown. My God, I've been to some electric Rose Bowls. Michigan USC in 2004, I think. I didn't go to the Texas Rose Bowl when USC beat Texas. I was 13 years old. I watched it on TV. I was like, why are we not at that game? But yeah, Rose Bowl's awesome. Evan says, be honest, Connor, what is the best / coolest college stadium you've been to? I've only been to Nebraska games, so I have no other frame of reference. Okay. Everything's weird, right? Like you got these little nuances. Like what's the best tailgating experience? What's the best stadium? Okay. If we go like overall experience, best game day, best stadium, best tailgating, we're just going to combo it all. I went to Alabama, LSU in 2019 with my dad. Joe Burrow versus Tua Tagovailoa. It was like a 40-38 game kind of deal, right? We saw punt return for a touchdown. We saw comeback. We saw, the overhit. We saw LSU cover. I bet all those things, which was great. The tailgating was incredible. People were awesome, like just so friendly. I was walking around with my dad. We're just walking through like tailgates, These older women, like 50s, are walking up to me. They were a little flirty. I'm guessing like they wanted attention from a younger guy. I don't know. So they're talking to me, trying to get me to drink with them. My dad's like, what the hell's going on? We're all taking selfies. They're literally grabbing my face. Both of these women grabbing my neck. Handles of Fireball, double fisting down my throat. I'm like, this is crazy. This is 2019. I was like 26. It was fire. It was a fun vibe. And everywhere you go, people were super friendly. I met Kirk Herbstreit, David Pollock. Who else did I meet that trip? I met a lot of the commentators. I was at the little game day setup the day before, so I got to see all them, got pictures with them. Just stumbled upon them. They have a really cool museum of like Alabama history that we went to the day before. Alabama's a special place, especially when they're at the peak. So that was one of them. It was a night game too. Another really cool stadium. Notre Dame's got its, it's just got its energy. You go around the stadium and you feel like you're in a historic place. The stadium itself isn't anything crazy, but you know what it is. You see it on TV and movies, and you just feel like you're in a special place. You walk by the grotto. Notre Dame was cool. The people were all, greened out. It was a fun vibe. The game I went to, I think they were in green against USC. I was in high school for that one too. I was 14 or 13. Texas, awesome. I went to Texas USC 2016, 17, 18, somewhere in there. It must have been 18. So Texas USC, I went the year after Texas lost to USC in the Coliseum. And Texas was a really good vibe. Awesome stadium. Outside, they had a big like drinking area, like a big tailgate deal. OU was awesome. I went to OU 2021 versus Nebraska. And then after the game, I've told you guys this before. I'll say it again for those who haven't heard the story. After the game, my dad's like, hey, we're going to my friend's house. I'm like, we're going to your friend's house? He's like, yeah, my dad lives in Oklahoma, for those who don't know. He lives 2.5 hours north of Norman. So he's like, yeah, we're going to my friend's house. We walk down the street. It's hot as shit. Nebraska just lost. I'm frustrated, but I'm dealing with it. With my friend Dylan too. So the three of us walk over, we knock on the door. This lady comes. She's an older lady. And she lets us in, and this guy walks out. It's Barry freaking Switzer. My dad's like, oh, that's my friend Barry. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, we met on a cruise in Russia like a year ago. I'm like, really? And Barry's super nice, takes me to his office. We're taking pictures together, has all of his trophies, his rings, his Super Bowl stuff, right? Like from the Cowboys, from Oklahoma. It was awesome. I'm sitting in Barry Switzer's living room watching USC. I think it was USC versus Washington. I remember Jackson Dart fired like a 60-yard TD pass in that game. And I was sitting there like, holy shit, Keith Jackson was there, the former tight end. There were a couple other Oklahoma players, like older dudes who were in their 50s who played under Switzer. I was like, wow, this is a surreal moment. I'm sitting in Barry Switzer's living room watching football, hanging out with this guy. It was incredible. Anyway, Oklahoma was very freaking cool. Big Noon Kickoff was there that day. I'm just telling you guys stories now at this point. Other really cool stadiums. I went to Cal for a rain game at night. That was a cool environment against USC. I think Marshawn Lynch was on the team back then, or Deshaun Jackson, one of the two. It was 2006, I think. I was young. Michigan, Nebraska. Michigan's one of the most underwhelming stadiums I've been to. I went to Michigan, Nebraska 2011. My favorite part about that game was getting to meet Levante David in the tunnel. I ran over to the tunnel, shook Levante's hand. He talked to me for a second. Super nice guy. Nebraska ended up losing that game. I saw Tom Osborne in my hotel. Man, I've been to a lot of really good games. I've experienced a lot of college football. Hence why I started a college football channel. I'm obsessed with this shit. You know, like, this is my life. I'm trying to think. Tennessee was an incredible stadium, terrible to walk through. It was so packed. There were so many damn people. It felt like you were in this cavernous tunnel. It took forever. Like, I'd go get a beer, walk back to my seats. It took 20 minutes, it felt like. It was crazy. I was stopping in tunnels and walking through to see what was going on with the game while I was walking back with beer. You were shoulder to shoulder the entire time. People complain about Nebraska stadium layout. Go to Tennessee and then talk to me. Where else? I don't know. I've been to a lot of places. It's hard. I got to pull up a list. Wisconsin was fun. Snow game at Wisconsin. The following day, snow game at the Packers. My dad and I, this is a funny story. So we go to Wisconsin, and Nebraska got their ass kicked. What's his name? Melvin Gordon ran for 400-something yards. I'm sitting in the best seats to watch this game, by the way, and I'm around a bunch of Nebraska fans. They all cleared out. It's snowing. I mean, I'm covered in snow. Melvin Gordon went off. We leave, and the next day we drive over to Green Bay. They were playing the Eagles, I believe. It's -6 degrees out, freezing. We have all of our snow gear. We would go to these games and we'd prepare. We'd go to like Dick's Sporting Goods, get all the gear to make sure we were warm enough, right? Like, got boots, got the double layered socks, got the hot packs, the hot hands packs. So we're sitting in the car drinking Mike's Hard Lemonades, okay? The double one. Like, there's a double version. It's like heavy hitter. It's called Harder. Mike's Harder. So we're drinking these Mike's Harder lemonades. I'm like 21. We get blasted in the car. Then we get out. We walk over to the stadium. My dad spends $1,000 on Packers gear. For me, him, I got like an authentic Aaron Rodgers jersey, like a $300 one. I'm not even a freaking Packers fan. He bought it for my uncle, my dad's girlfriend at the time, who's now his wife. He bought it for himself. My sister, he bought her Packer stuff. Spends like $1,000, right? Well, we're both drunk. He's wearing a hat that some lady had handed to him. Like, one of the sales ladies said, oh, put this on, see if it fits, like, add it to your order. We walk out of the store and he's like, the buzzer goes off. And he's like, oh shit, I didn't pay for the hat. And I was like, oh, you got to go give it back to him. He's like, no, fuck that. I just spent $1,300. They can give me a free hat. It was so funny. We went back the next day and returned half the stuff because he's like, what am I doing buying your sister a bunch of Packers gear? Anyway, snow game again. So I've been to a lot of really cool ones. I haven't been to Michigan State. I haven't been to some of the smaller schools. Like, I haven't been to Maryland. I haven't been to Northwestern. It's usually the bigger ones, you know? Never mind me says, bro, I didn't choose to go to the wedding. I was part of it. Hey, you still chose, brother. You were not held against your will at gunpoint. I'm not hating. I'm not being mean to you. I promise you. But if my sister said you're going to be in the wedding and it's on a college football Saturday, I'm going to remind her that I've been telling her for the past 6 years, if you choose to have your wedding on one of the 12 Saturdays of college football in the year, when you had 50 or 40 other Saturdays to choose, that's on you, homie. That's not on me. That's a you issue. I opted out long ago. I will be there. You have 365 days a year, right? I will be there for 351 of them or whatever it is. I will be there for any of those 351. Choose. You've got all the options in the world. I will clear my schedule for any day except a college football Saturday. There's only 12. I could die next year, and this is my last season of college football. What are we? Again, I respect your decision to go. That's nice of you. I'm not hating. I'm not being mean. I'm just saying I couldn't do it, even if I was in the wedding. If I was supposed to be the guy who does the wedding and reads out of the Bible and gives the ring, I don't care what I'm doing, what my role is. You have all of those days. Don't call me on one of my busy days. That's disrespectful. Disrespectful to me. Ryan says that the USC game is for sure at night. I'll be bringing my 10-year-old daughter. That would be an incredible experience for her. Is she a big Nebraska fan? Like, I just can't imagine a lot of 10-year-old girls being that into college football. Like my sister, now that she's older, she can appreciate it more because like her boyfriend went to Ohio State, so they go to a lot of Ohio State games. She obviously pays attention to Nebraska and comes to Nebraska games. But when she was 10, I remember she would get really bothered by all the football talk in the house. But hopefully your daughter has a good time. I hope so. The other Dave says, anyone know if club seats at the Rose Bowl are worth it? I don't even know where the club seats are. That's a good question. I don't know if they'd be worth it. I mean, the tickets for that game should be relatively cheap. I think you just pull the trigger, brother. I know when I sit in seats at the Rose Bowl, it's always in the lower bowl, like 20 rows up. It's just where we've sat forever. So I just sit in the same spot. But for the US or for the Nebraska UCLA game, I would think it's only going to be Nebraska fans, right? Or were they really going to fill it up with 80,000, 70,000, whatever their capacity is now? Jose says, I was at the 2015 Michigan State upset. It's the only game I've been to. Wow. So that game was the first game that my best friend from high school ever went to. I took him. Another game we were hammered for. And it was an incredible experience. He ate 6 or 7 Runzas that night. He was so hyped. He loved Runza. He ended up loving Nebraska football after that. He's a USC fan, but he claims Nebraska as his second team. That was an incredible night. 2015 Michigan State. Ryan says Grove, Oklahoma in the house. I like that. My dad lives in Grove, Oklahoma, for those who didn't know. I don't know if Ryan, if you're making that comment because that's where my dad lives or if that's where you live. But yeah, my dad lives in Grove. Let's see. Tyler says, see you at the USC game. Hopefully the environment's similar to Colorado last year. I mean, all black. If the whole stadium's rocking black and Will Compton comes over the loudspeaker and it's getting dark out, how is it not going to match that energy? Now, Nebraska does have to be in contention. They got to be 7-1 at that point. That's going to rile some people up. Yeah, I'm very excited for that game. It could. Michigan didn't match the Colorado energy. It was close. It didn't match it. I was extremely emotional. It was fun. Like, it was a great vibe. I was hyped out beyond belief, but Colorado energy was another level. Could you get that for the USC game? If Nebraska's 7-1, got to be able to. Rushy says Penn State whiteout would be the best. Washington would be cool. I went to Nebraska at Penn State. It wasn't a whiteout. It was a snow game. Nebraska won. Kenny Bell had a kick return for a touchdown. Nebraska won by 3, I think, in overtime. That was an awesome game. Nighttime. Not a whiteout, though. It felt a little bit dark in there. I don't know. The energy just felt dark. Obviously, Nebraska won, so it was a little bit dark if you're a Penn State fan. That must have been 2013 or 2012. Huh. Penn State whiteout. I would definitely want to go to that. I'd want to go when they were actually going to be able to win, though. Like right now, in the James Franklin era, I'm not going to a Penn State whiteout. I'm not paying that kind of money for a Penn State whiteout when they can't win it. Yeah, Saray, my dad has done well. My dad's done well for sure. Hugh says, I'm trying to go to USC also. I haven't been to a night game in Lincoln since '06 versus Kansas. Wow, that's a long time. I think a lot of Nebraska fans are going to want to be there for that night game. You see the night game spectacle that we had with, who was it? Houston Christian or Akron? It was Akron. And imagine that exact same scenario, except in a game that's meaningful. I hope you go, Hugh. It'd be worth it. Will says, I've watched 2 Husker games during the wedding. Someone had to do it. Dude, I totally agree with you. Someone's got to. I remember before I had this channel, I was running an Instagram page. And on that Instagram page, hang on, let me just respond to this. My delivery guy. I just got here. They close at 6. Last store's about Thursday. Okay, no problem. We'll come tomorrow. My other work. My guy's delivering product right now. Okay. What was I saying? Oh, so I was running the Instagram page, and this is pre-Corn Craze YouTube. These kids were at like a homecoming in Nebraska, like a high school homecoming, and they sent me a video of all of them huddled around a table, and all their dates are off doing whatever they're doing. It's just guys who are all dressed up super nice, and they're all hyped up watching Nebraska beat Illinois with Wandale Robinson back in 2018, I think it was, 2019, one of those years. Anyway, at the right occasion, you got to pull the phone out and watch the game. I totally respect it. I would be doing the exact same thing. Ryan says he brought his daughter to a game last year as well as a volleyball game in the same weekend. She's been asking me ever since to go back. Well, that's awesome. Your daughter actually has fun going then, Ryan. Wow, Ryan says his dad lives in Grove, Oklahoma. Small world, Ryan. Yeah, my dad lives on Grand Lake. He's there right now. I go all the time. I love Grove. I've been going there for like 8 years, ever since he built a house there. Rushy says, I don't know if it's play calling or what, but give me Ja'Cory Barney down the sideline for 6. I think that's possible, brother. I think Nebraska could definitely hit Ja'Cory in this game. I'm hoping so. I'd love to see him score a touchdown. I'm going to take his touchdown on Prize Picks for sure. Saray says, do you think they'll hand out black balloons for the USC game? I don't know. I hope not. It wouldn't make sense because of the dark sky. I would hope they'd have red balloons with just the sea of black. That's what I would hope. We'll see. Saray says, I never thought to pre-plan my outfit until you said something about you doing it. So I'm all ready for the USC game with my outfit. So honestly, I didn't used to pre-plan outfits. I never cared. But then I started this channel and I would take 50 pictures on a game day. Like I'd see all these people I was friends with from the channel, you know, and everyone's like, oh, let's picture. So I had to have a fit. I couldn't look bummy, right? So I started planning my outfits for every game in advance. So for USC last year, same thing. I took 100 pictures at the USC game last year. It was electric. I was with Fedoni's family. I were taking pictures. I've got that one on my phone. I just saw so many people. It was so freaking fun. But I had to plan the outfit in advance because you got to buy the stuff and make sure you're fully prepared, right? This year, same thing. Got to make sure you're dialed in. I totally understand. Nebraska Boy says the only game I've been to other than Nebraska was Florida at South Carolina in 1999 for free because of Veterans Day. Man, that's awesome. You got to go visit South Carolina. I don't know what was going on with South Carolina in 1999. Was Steve Spurrier the coach? I couldn't even tell you. I was 6 years old. That's crazy. You got to experience though for free. Happy for you. Simple Jack says he had to watch the Nebraska-Michigan game during his brother's wedding. Glad I didn't bring a gift. It's hilarious. Well, fortunately for you guys, you'll be able to, it sounds like most of you guys will be able to watch this game this weekend. No drama. I obviously won't be able to, but I'll be back with you next week to talk about it because I will watch it. I will watch the replay of it, but I won't be here to do my post-game live reaction because I'll be at the Texas OU game. So have fun watching Nebraska for me. Keep me in your thoughts, and hopefully you can maybe just ask ChatGPT after the game, what would Connor from Corn Craze say about this game? And ChatGPT might be able to give you, in my words, what I thought. We'll see. That'd be a good one. Hugh says Grand Lake is dope, but I'm from Kansas, and any decent lake is the shit to me. Grand Lake is very cool. I don't know what you got going on in Kansas, but Grand Lake in Oklahoma is a pretty awesome lake. Cody Kai says, where in the Rose Bowl would be the best place for kids to sit to have a great first Husker game experience? Rather, anywhere in the stadium. If you're a kid, I've sat in the Rose Bowl. I've literally sat everywhere. I sat in the end zone. I've sat on the 50. I've sat. You can so the Rose Bowl is perfectly like round. What is it? Like a cylinder. So you sit there and you can see the entire field from any angle. It's not like there's a wall that blocks you off anywhere. Or it's not like oblong. Like USC, you can sit behind the end zones. Like you can sit off to the side. It's a weird kind of cutout. That's not the case at UCLA. It's perfectly symmetrical. So anywhere, they're going to have a good time. I love going to okay, I don't know what it's like going to a UCLA game today. Back when I was growing up, UCLA tailgates were lit. You'd go around, people were partying. UCLA had a lot of Mexican fans, so they had tons of Mexican food there, just like USC. So the food's fire. I mean, UCLA is an experience different from USC. Different, but it was still a great tailgating experience. I would hope there's some of that going on right now. You park up in Old Town Pasadena, and you take you got two options. You take the bus down through the roads. They actually pass by the house they filmed. I think it's the house they filmed Step Brothers at. So you're in those neighborhoods. But you go down, take this bus. It's a mile, I think, and they pop you out right in front of the stadium. And then I'd always walk back because the bus ride was the line to get on the bus was too long to get back to Old Town. So you walk a mile back, no big deal. But UCLA, Nebraska is going to be an awesome day. I mean, it's going to be so nostalgic for me. I haven't been back in such a long time. I'm going with my mom. It'll be fun. But I hope you guys get to go. Anyway, with all that said, I'm going to let you guys get out of here. I'll be back next week. I wish I could make a post-game reaction with you, but unfortunately, I got other business to tend to. So with all that said, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Go Big Red.